that better? That's it. So, I'm going to start. So, I had to put this in the program, and walking over here, I thought, we called it priorities, because I'm not sure if Craig gave me that idea, but it kind of seemed sensible. And walking over here, I thought I don't need any preparation, because it's what I think about the whole fucking time for so long that, there's a few things I'm interested in. Clearly, for me, total priority has been changing RDT. I mean, in my understanding, the police kind of scuttled us. They're not the police, the doctors scuttled us by having legal weed prescribed. It took the fire out of the Legalise Cannabis campaign. And, when you're standing there handing out, I found a few times, people say, what do you mean, mate, it's legal? Didn't you hear already? So that's an issue we can talk about, which is be changing our name, should we do that? But for me, because of that legal cannabis, it took the heat out of that. So I thought RDT is the biggest issue. And I know for a fact Jeremy's really focused on that with the Premier Mins. And I have to tell you guys, I'm not smoking that much, but I saw a story with his picture in it this morning, and it turned into a police uniform. He was in a police uniform, and honestly, it looked real. That's sort of, I thought, where he belongs. So they've got something on him. And RDT is huge, home grow is clearly huge, but I reckon I'll just pass this now to each Member of Parliament we've got, who I'm ever so grateful for. I ran as a candidate quite a few times, and it's probably great I never got elected, because the amount of work is just massive. Honestly, endless reading, isn't it? It takes over your whole life. All these people can tell you that. So we should really appreciate what they're doing for us. So I'll start with David. What your priorities? You've got an election in end of November.
Indeed. Hi, thanks for joining us today. I'm David Ettershank. I'm one of the two MPs in the Upper House in Victoria. I just pay my respects to the traditional owners of these beautiful and unceded lands and waterways, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and any First Nations people that are with us here today. In Victoria, we're 3.5 years into our adventure, I can call it that. And it's been, to put it bluntly, very, very, very frustrating. We have a crushing Labor majority in the lower house, and we have a balance of power situation in the upper house. But that doesn't mean there's 1/3 government, 1/3 opposition, 1/3 crossbench. So the government's got plenty of farming that it can do if it wants to pull the numbers together. We have made, in that time, one major win, and that was on roadside protesting. And it's sort of like a quiet achiever one, because basically what it said was previously the magistrates had no discretion. You had to go to court. Magistrates had no discretion. If there was any presence, you lose your licence for 12 months plus a fine. What we were able to get through was that magistrates would simply have their discretion returned. And on the face of it, that was all it was. And the Libs, the Nats, everyone voted for it except for One Nation. And they, as with nearly everything cannabis, they stayed out of the tent. And Shooters, Fishers and Farmers, who ex-copper is their member, and he voted against it. He was the only one to vote against it. But what was significant about this wasn't simply giving the magistrates discretion, it was what was put into the transcript, which was basically the effect of which is, if you go to the NAGs to appeal, if you've been picked up, tested positive, you can go to the magistrates and they will then hear your matter. And what happens there is that the police have to prove that either you were impaired, in which case you'd be charged with impairment, so that scrubs out, or the police have to prove that you weren't taking your prescribed medication in a manner consistent with your doctor's direction. Now, the net effect of that is after just over 12 months, we're aware of a couple of people who got fines, but they are on multiple offences. There's one sort of mischievous magistrate who's handed out a couple of good behaviour bombs in Warrnambool, but otherwise everyone's walked. and they've kept their licences, they haven't been fined. And our view is that what's going to happen basically is the police back prosecutors are sick of doing this. Every time they go in, they lose. And once the police have worked through their 480,000 lipsticks that they've got in their stores, they're basically just, it's just not going to be worth their while, because their own colleagues in the courts are going to tell them to fuck off, pardon my French. So we're pretty happy with that. It's a backhanded way of getting there. But I want to make one other point with regard to this. Even though it was virtually unanimous in the chamber, the only way we got it there was that the government wanted to make a constitutional change, and we were the last 2 votes. They couldn't get anyone else. And so at the end of the day, it was, we can hold our breath forever. This is your election promise. You desperately want to get this through. This is the deal. So you can talk about relationships and building friendships and whatever else, and I know Jeremy's had a lot more time to build relationships, but at the end of the day, it's a totally transactional business. And if you can't apply the leverage, don't rely on logic. And we learnt that last year in November, when we thought we had a deal with the government on decrim, went to cabinet. We know we had multiple senior ministers, including, I won't go into this, we had more than the numbers, and at the end of the day, the Premier made a captain's call that they couldn't be seen to be other than tough on crime. And it went down the toilet. And when we met with government, it was, mate, you don't need to argue with us. It's not about logic. And at that point in time, if it's not about logic and it's not about self-interest, what else have you got to negotiate with other than holding pieces of legislation to hostage? So I guess the priority for Legalise Cannabis in Victoria next year will be, firstly, to get re-elected, because the actual voting system is yet to be resolved. And then secondly, it will be one of trying to work out who's going to be in government. Because quite clearly, whilst there is a unanimous ALP policy to legalise and regulate and commercialise cannabis, when you say that to members of parliament, they just laugh and sort of like, are you naive or are you just sort of jerking my string? They don't give a shit about their own party policy. It's about the pragmatism of being in parliament. So for us, it'll be to get people back in. Hope like hell the Liberals and One Nation don't hold the balance of power, in which case we're all fucked in Victoria on any progress. And then we move forward from there. Sorry if that was a bit of a long answer there.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
It's on, yeah.
It makes sense. I'm interested in how many people magistrates have let walk so far, you reckon? Quite a few people without any
As far as we know, there's only been a couple of good behaviour ones.
Yeah. It makes sense for the police to just let them go.
Do we know how many walk?
No, we've actually got a search in at the moment. So the magistrate's database is a very slow process. But yeah, we'll have that first year of results shortly.
So what I heard was, really, they're not nice, they lie, and you need leverage to get change.
Yes.
You need some bargaining power.
I wish I had put it that succinctly.
No, you're good. But it leads into Brian, because you're in that game now, aren't you?
Look, I can say everything David said is quite correct. So the politicians have no interest in truth, no interest in serving the public, unless it makes them look good. And so this is a fundamental flaw in our system, but we've got to live with that. That's what we've got. So you could say that what we should be aiming for is a complete system change, and that's indeed what I do aim for. But what's realistic right now? The first thing that's realistic in Western Australia is that the THC driving laws. Now, I had a select committee, and the select committee made recommendations. The government accepted them all bar 2, and of all the recommendations they accepted, the only one that they took action on is THC driving. And you might think, well, the science is there. No, it had to go to a working group, and it took 1 year for the working group to report to the Health Minister. And so the Health Minister got the report in December, and January was Parliament, was the same thing. So February was saying, okay, what's the goal? What's happened? And so we said, yes, behind the chair, they said, you're going to really like what we're doing with this. You're going to love it. We can't tell you what it is, because it hasn't been signed off yet. So we said, okay, fine. And I really wanted to have that promise given before we come to Nimbin, so I could say, this is what we're doing. No. So February came and went, March came and went, April, then we find out that MINS in New South Wales, according to what Jeremy's been doing, is maybe going to crack a little bit. I was so angry. I said, you utter it. I said a few choice words anyhow. And the long and the short of it is that they've insulted me and the party, and indeed all the people, smacked me across the face by stringing me along, because one minister has the approval sitting on his desk, and he's not signed it. It's taken 2 months to find his pen. So I spat my dummy a couple of weeks ago. Media report went out, and not one single law that they put through the upper house am I going to support, even the good laws, and there are good laws. Now, this is the leverage that David was speaking about. Because the balance of power is not 100% in government's favour just now, they need either the full quantity of the Greens or the full quantity of the crossbench, or indeed the support of the opposition. Now, as the old man of the crossbench, I've got some influence with that mix of people. And so now that they know that they've got what used to be a supporter, not a supporter but a friend, someone who is allied, someone who sees a common path forward to serving the people, they've now pissed me off big time. And so what I can tell you with absolute certainty is that THC driving laws will change. That is a promise. The only question is when. I anticipate that we're going to hear that this month or maybe next month, but I think that the announcement will come. They could, of course, say, well, we'll do it in 2 years' time, or we'll put this to an election campaign. They might say that, but I suspect they're going to put the laws through the House fairly soon. The other piece of good news is that there's going to be a select committee again to look at workers' impairment, not cannabis, but all forms of impairment, how we check it and how we manage it. And so what's happening, I see, is that finally the dominoes are beginning to fall. The first one is wobbling. It's very wobbly. Tasmania was by accident. The ACT is a proof that everything's actually fine. And what's happened in Victoria is a great, there's no problems with that. New South Wales, forging ahead, if you like, and we're trying to catch up, or maybe even overtake you. But the laws are going to change. It was said earlier on in the town hall, it's inevitable. It's a matter just of time. And getting these people to move is actually really quite hard, because they're determined to serve the interests of the transnationals, the system itself, rather than the people, you and me. They don't really care about us as such. But that's where we're at. So that's the priorities. But going beyond that, my priority is to let the whole population know, you vote for these major parties, the established ones, you're actually wasting your vote, because they do not want to change, they do not want to support you. We need to wipe the whole lot away and start afresh. Why not consider us?
Go, Jez.
Me?
Jez,
All
yeah,
right.
thanks, Brian. Like, it's like you're in a different situation. They have such a majority in WA, don't they?
Yeah.
Total majority. Where David's got a bit. Jeremy.
Well, I've been sucking up to the Min's government. That's what I've been doing. I've just been a lapdog. I've been eating a lot of shit sandwiches in the hope of just trying to get something done. I mean, that's the truth. Like, I've had to vote for some shit things or abstain while the Min's government did some shit things, and then also been a crucial vote on some okay things in the hope of getting something done. And I've been promised in a series of meetings with the Premier that we're going to do this by Christmas. And but he doesn't tell us which Christmas. And so I'm pretty close to the end of my tether. We're about a year out from the state election. The key ask we've had is two key things. One, roadside drug testing, because of course that's key business for the anyone on medical, and for it, like it's a achievable step on the road to cannabis law reform. We've had 3 inquiries, a drug summit recommended, and I've had Chris Min shake my hand a number of times and say we're going to do it. And he said publicly as recently as 6 weeks ago that he was going to do it. We're expecting some legislation very soon, and hopefully we can get that reform over the line. So that's a priority of getting that done. But if it's not done by June, I've said to them, then I'm throwing all my toys out of the cot and you've completely fucked us. You know, like, that's the truth. And so, like, I've been around in politics long enough to not trust them. So I'm pretty conflicted about it, because I'm feeling like I feel like a goose if they do me over. Anyway, we've also got the state election coming up, New South Wales in 2027. So that's a priority for us. We're finding candidates. So if anyone feels like being a politician, put your hand up.
Masochist.
All right, okay, sign up. There we go, Craig. We need people to stand for us. We're running. We could win the seat of Ballina. The member for Ballina's retiring, and so we're a chance there. And we're going to focus on the upper house. So we've got the state election coming up. So it's a real priority to sort of run into that really hard. And then the other one is a justice issue, is vicarious liability. I can't even spell it, but I know what it is. And that is the Catholic Church have been very, very evil for a very long time. And they oversaw a system, and Rachel and I have been working on this particularly, where they basically had all these volunteers, priests, who abused kids, and they moved them around the system. And now they're saying, oh no, we're not responsible for those priests because they were volunteers, they weren't employees. They're not our responsibility, even though this priest worked for the Catholic Church for like 50 years and did all these things, and they knew it, and they admit to it, and they say, but we're not liable because for damages because he was a volunteer, which is just total bullshit. And so we are pressuring the Minns government again. There's some pretty hardcore Catholics still in politics, like the Attorney General in New South Wales, Michael Daly. And there's still some serious Opus Dei characters in politics. People full bore, servants of Rome, in the Labor Party and the Liberal Party and whatever. And then there's the Masons, and there's the it goes on and on and on. But we're pressuring those people, saying that look, we need legislation. The Victorians have done it, massive win. Big shout out to Rachel on getting that done and David in Victoria. So that's a priority for us as well, is getting the roadside drug testing, running into the state election, and making sure that the Pope pays. Thank you.
Ian, can you give us a clue? What do you think Minns is going to do on RDT? Is it because he doesn't seem happy? Because for me, it's a total compromise, just letting people on a prescription. What about our homegrown weed?
Yeah, I know. We are the thin edge of the wedge party. And if you'd come to my talk earlier, you would have heard you would have heard all this, Mike. But I know you're busy. So I think what it boils down to is the cops. And I said this before, so have you heard this before? The cops in New South Wales are insanely powerful. They're a huge organisation. They're very political. They can cause a lot of trouble for a government one way or the other. All the cops care about is the cops. And so they're basically saying, well, look, if you're going to take RDT away from us and our capacity to hassle medicinal cannabis patients and basically enforce prohibition, then we want to control the rules about how it's going to operate at the roadside to protect themselves. That's what they're worried about. The liability of the highway patrol officer who waves someone who's on medicinal or potentially down the track, adult use cannabis.
Complete bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what they're worried about. They're not worried about road safety or anything like that. They're worried about how they, indemnify.
Might get sued.
They can't get sued. If a medicinal cannabis patient who's not impaired, got a prescription, is waved through, and then, is in an accident, even if they're not at fault, the cops isn't liable. And that's what they're worried about. I think we've got a plan to deal with that, but we're waiting and literally hoping for legislation in the next week.
Thanks, Jess. Rach,
Michael.
your priorities for you with an election in Victoria end of November, am I right?
Yes, we've got 7 sitting weeks left of this parliamentary term, and then it's election time. So November 2026, it will be the fate of, legalised cannabis going forward in Victoria. So it's about laying some of that groundwork over the next 7 weeks to make sure that we at least try and get something out of this, quite spineless government that we've tried to work with in good faith. We met with, Fiona and I met with the police commissioner recently, the assistant police commissioner recently, and we were going in there to have the conversation around we need to stop arresting people. And what surprised us all in that room, apart from the police commissioner, was that they had changed their police guidance manual in September 2024 to make sure that it was more accessible for people just to get cautioned rather than arrested, and the eligibility criteria was extended out. But no one knew that. The police don't even know that. So we said, well, isn't this a good opportunity for us then to say, the police are already doing this, shouldn't we legislate it? And that's what we're going back into Parliament in May to try and push forward with. So we'll be putting forward a motion to request that the government legislate the guidance that they've already got there for the police, and that way at least us as consumers know our rights, lawyers who work in the space also know their rights, but most importantly, police are all required and educated on that, and that it is an automatic caution rather than up to them to decide if they caution or arrest and so forth. I would also indicate that hemp is another one that we've worked on behind the scenes for many years. We put forward some industrial hemp legislation that would also see a scientific licence, see the red tape removed so that more people can grow hemp in Victoria and really bolster that industry. We are hopeful that there will be something coming from the government in the next few weeks, but they keep saying to us that their political agenda is full and we don't know what's coming. We also saw that there's been a cabinet reshuffle, so a lot of the ministers that we've built relationships with and worked with no longer have those portfolios that we were working on them with. So you kind of feel like you take two steps back to try and leap forward again. But bottom line for us, it's about getting elected and being able to continue to forge ahead and try and get reform in this space, because we hit 100 years of prohibition in Victoria next year. Victoria was one of the first states to instill prohibition laws, and we want to be the first state to legalise, or at least stop arresting people.
Thank you. So, Fiona, you all know Fiona now. So those four, I'm going to take this away so I can get a nice photo of our four MPs together. And Fiona, who I'd have to say her experience has been huge for the Legalise Cannabis Party. She's secretary of Legalise Cannabis Victoria now, ran for Victoria in the last federal election. So I like that you have the experience. That's what I noticed. So what's realistic for our priorities?
Look, I think that's, it's funny thinking, I was just thinking about you being a candidate.
Yeah.
And we ran a sex and drugs joint ticket when I was running for the sex party and Michael was running for the hemp party. And we had a lot of fun with sex and drugs. Still do, actually, really. But anyway, back to priorities. I think one of the things that you learn in politics, and they are shitheads, but unfortunately the governments of the day actually are the ones that make the legislation. We're there to nudge them to change. And everyone on this podium has done that over the years, myself included. I think what Rachel and David did with RDT was unsung, and I think we need to talk about this more, because right now medicinal cannabis patients are not losing their licences in Victoria. And that is a big win. And I think there was something hearing Ethan Nadelman, and it's something that I don't have a tattoo, but if I did, it would be, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And if you can make these small steps forward, we are going to get there. And so I think my priorities for this year would be getting Legalised Cannabis elected, so we have got a voice in there. It is going to be more difficult, and like New South Wales, Victoria is opening up for nominations. So if there are any Victorians here, or a Victorian who you think would make a great candidate for legalised cannabis, let us know. But we do need to get people, we need to have those voices. And the people in Parliament, they are nudging them. Rachel, David, Brian, Jeremy have all had conversations with so many politicians on both sides of the table, myself included. The vast majority of them privately agree that cannabis use should not be a crime. 80% of Australians don't think cannabis use should be a crime. In fact, 50% of Australians believe that cannabis should be legal and regulated. So we are nearly there. So I think the work that Legalise Cannabis does is keeps nudging us forward. You know, it's frustrating. It is really fucking frustrating because it is so slow. When you know that the vast majority of Australians support what Legalise Cannabis is doing, we just can't get the governing politicians quite through the door. And I think absolutely what everyone's been saying, the police have been pushing the door closed. So they are pushing from the other side. So we've got the force of the police on one side and us on the other side trying to open that door for politicians to go through. I think we are having wins, and I think RDT is a very good example of that. I think the fact that we're doing inquiries in every state and you're getting bipartisan support on the report saying, yeah, we need to change the laws. So you've got everyone agreeing on it, you just haven't got them fucking doing it. So pardon me.
What makes the police push so hard? What makes the police push so hard?
Yeah, you hate to think it's an Asslinger thing, that it's about power and it's about control, but I think it is. However, Rachel and I were just outside. We've just gone to the meeting with the Assistant Commissioner. He's telling us that, oh no, we've actually changed the police guidance. They don't have to arrest anyone for cannabis. And we're going, really?
Hello.
When did you do that? Oh, a couple of years ago. Right. Now, when you look at the statistics, nothing has changed in those 2 years. Police are still arresting just as many people as they were. They might be giving out slightly more cautions, but very few. So, but they haven't been pressured to do it. So, armed with that information, that will change. The thing I wanted to say is I was outside the police. We were outside the police station, walking away. All the coppers work in the big building outside having a smoke. Every single one of them was smoking illicit tobacco. Not a single one of them was smoking a legal cigarette. And I just looked at that and just went, right. So you don't give a shit about the laws anyway. So why are you holding us back? But look, I think it's control, and I think, when I look at the Police Association, the board there, they are coppers who are coppers in the 60s. They are old school coppers, and that generational change hasn't happened at the top of the associations and the unions. I think it's happened in the force, but it hasn't happened out there.
Yeah, interesting. Power. I always thought power and jobs. Because really, it's 50% or more of their work, police, the drug war. So we're asking them to drop their jobs. I think they're frightened of that, but power, they love the power, I'd have to say. Interesting what you say about the older generation. We've got a new inspector, that guy at the cop shop yesterday. Very cool, relaxed guy. He's a new
Facebook was saying he got
new
raided
generation.
the other day.
Sorry?
Facebook was saying the embassy got raided 2 days ago.
Absolute nonsense. Police probably put that up.
See, this is why I don't go on Facebook.
Yeah, absolute nonsense. Miles. So Miles ran, am I right, in the federal election for New South Wales last time. He's one of the two people who formed Unharmed. Unharmed, strong, good movement in Sydney. Lawyer Miles, very keen for the whole thing. He's been working with Jeremy a bit, and now he's looking after our policy committee. Can you talk about our talk there?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Good on you.
You ran with me, Michael, in that election.
That's right. I was number 2.
Yeah. And I just want to say, great to be here, and it's great to be here with the MPs. I see how much work they put in to try and get these small changes, these big changes, but these really difficult changes that take lots of hours and lots of stress. So respect. On the policy committee, I get to be idealistic, not pragmatic. I don't really have to create legislation. We're ultimately, as a policy committee, we're looking at ways that the Legalise Cannabis Party can grow and be more than just a bigger party, really, and push for more change. It's a big opportunity. I think there's a lot of disenfranchisement out there in the world about the current state of politics, about our parliaments, our two-party system, which is failing the people. So I think the Cannabis Party can be a movement, a positive movement, an opportunity to have change and look at a change for the future in a positive way, in a working with nature kind of way. The prohibition of cannabis for 100 years was a failure, a significant failure, which has cost thousands of people's lives and so much damage, right? And I think that we have to say that decriminalisation was not enough. You need to apologise for the harm that's been caused. You need to expunge the criminal records of everyone who's been charged for possession. So those are the things that, and I think that decriminalisation of nature and working more sustainably with hemp and, with psychedelics potentially for medicine and for treatment and for spirituality, I think there's a way for our movement to grow. But we're always open. On the policy committee, we're looking at new policies. It takes a while. We're working through looking at ways to make participation of everyday citizens in our democracy more a bigger possibility, and allow the people to sort of have a say. These are things I think that we need to consider fundamental changes to our very system to live in a better world. And I think the Cannabis Party can be part of that. So if you've got any policies, you've got any ideas, feel free to come and speak to me at any time, or hopefully we can sort of grow without losing our base, and also be about cannabis, be about more than that, but also be part of something better.
It's a big thing that we're a single issue party. It's a big discussion that we're a single issue party just to legalise cannabis, and you can see what happens as soon as we say, all right, we're not for war, all the warmongers won't vote for us. Yeah. So we've deliberately stayed, we're for weed, or across the spectrum, all sorts of people use cannabis, support us. So the Greens think we pinch votes from them, but I can tell you it's not a lot, it's from all across the spectrum. People vote for us, we've found out. The last one is Andrew Fenwick. Andrew's been with us a long time candidate, multiple times, haven't you? New South Wales, and got the biggest lower house vote in the last election, probably. Did you get 11% or something ridiculous?
In the Cessnock electorate, we got just under 12.
Amazing.
But once we did the redistribution of preferences, it came in to 20.
Mate.
Yeah. So even the local member was a little bit shocked that a fifth of his electorate was left in favour of legalising cannabis. And we've had some good conversations as a result of it.
Priorities.
Yeah. I'm sort of at the moment, I look at all the great work that's been done in the States, and I think we shouldn't undersell the fact that, pre-2021, we weren't represented anywhere, and now that we've got this, it's really impressive. But what we can see is that, in New South Wales, we've got a Premier who, before he was elected, was saying that cannabis should be legalised and it's time to do it, and now we've got this total recalcitrant.
Okay, he's wearing a police uniform at night.
Yeah, we heard that. Western Australia, legalisation or decriminalisation of cannabis within their policy platform. It was great to meet with Jeff the last time we were together at the symposium, and he how passionate he was about all that stuff they did. And now we've got a Premier who acts like that never existed. Victoria, the previous Premier, made really strong promises about addressing the RDT laws and stuff like that. The next Premier rolls in, and now we've got an 18-month trial to check who can drive, who can't drive, and how they affect it. And we can see that the states are really struggling to get through this system. My focus in the last sort of 6 months has been about the whole federal process and the different components of that. And what you uncover there is right back to 1925 in Geneva. There was not one single legitimate argument for cannabis to be involved in prohibition. Not one. And it goes all the way through. Then to happen here, like Aslinger wrote a letter to Australia saying, what's your drug policy on cannabis? And sent a propaganda fact sheet on narcotics. And our then External Affairs Minister, Robert Menzies, read that propaganda and then decreed that cannabis was going to be outlawed in Australia. So every state that hadn't already been pressured by the UK to outlaw, it was now against. Once again, that information that came from Aslinger and that Geneva Convention, the League of Nations, backed by the World Health Organization report, it was based on news clippings. There was no science. It was just, it was like the Murdoch of the 1930s saying that this stuff is really bad, and that's what he based his report on. So I really think there's a lot to be done in the federal arena to try and unravel that onion right back to the core, as if this is all illegitimate right from the get-go. If you look at, like everyone says, oh, but we're signed up with a single convention in 1961. If you read into that convention, there's multiple countries in that convention who reserve the right to use opium and cannabis for non-medical use and to produce it and to trade in it. We could just write that letter and say we're no longer a part of it for clause 45. These are all things we can undo, so we need a federal influence. The TGA, it's how hypocritical is it that we've got cannabis in 2 different schedules on the TGA. One's telling us it's a horrible, nasty, dangerous drug that's got no use, and the very next schedule says, but we'll give it to you for medical stuff because it works. All this hypocrisy needs to be changed. So we need that federal influence, and that's what I'm focused on at the moment, is trying to build up an argument for that federal influence, and then to try and build a roadmap to, okay, what do we unravel, in what order, and how do we do it? Like, what is the process of getting 2J rescheduling? What's the process of getting out of the 61 convention? All that sort of thing. So
The government wants money.
that's my aim anyway.
They want money.
Everyone wants money.
The government wants money. So what we do is we grow our own in our own backyard, and what we save for putting it out in the community to flog off, that money gets put back into the community, and they make 10% on the sales tax in here. You know.
That's just one of them. I mean, you look at Jeremy touched on it earlier. We've got government-sponsored illegal markets, and they're making $5 billion a year because of prohibition. So there's 10% tax on $5 billion straight off the bat.
But then we're fighting these powerful pharmaceutical companies who are coming in and paying off politicians to change the law so no one will still be able to grow their own weed at home.
Oh, that's right.
The bigger problem is the pharmaceutical companies particularly spread absolute lies about cannabis.
Yeah, that's right, I
Absolute
agree.
propaganda lies.
Exactly what I agree with. Yeah.
So I want to introduce a new thing here for a sec. I thought Miles might. So we're talking about being a single issue party is difficult. So recently it's been, these guys have been into politics longer than me. So I tried to hide from it in the bush here. So recently I thought, these guys running the country are career politicians. So I asked my robot friend, what was Albo's job? What's his work experience? So he did engineering at uni, then his first job was with the Labor Party. And he's never had another job. And that's how the system's working. Anyway, I thought, what about a new way of doing government? We've watched this massive percentage of voters just move to Pauline Hanson. I don't think they all like Pauline, but they're sick of Labor and Liberal. And I think there's a lot of people just sick of the way government works. And so we've been talking a bit about a thing called the Citizens' Assembly, which they've done in Ireland particularly, and other countries where you randomly choose 100 people from the public, and experts say cannabis, or should we legalise cannabis? Different people will talk to them, and they'll come back and make a decision. I actually would like to go further, like they do in Switzerland, and you give everybody a vote on things, which you can do now because everyone's on the internet. The ball game's changed. So that's something I'd like us to all think about more, a different way of doing government. And it's not really having a new, we're a single issue policy, so it's hard to get new policies filed. So that's like a different way of doing government. So I don't know what anyone here got any special thoughts on that. David, you weren't so keen. I'm interested in, because I don't know enough about it, but I do think I'd like to hear from you and Brian and Jez what you think. David.
Look, I think there's sort of 2 sides to this. One is, yes, we should be doing everything we can to enhance democracy, to increase participation, to educate people on how to be involved. The second thing, though, as well, at the risk of tossing a grenade in, is I think at the same time we probably also need to talk about democracy and decision-making in the party. Because at the moment, clearly, we don't have a highly engaged membership. And people talk all the time about we don't particularly getting volunteers and people participating. But I do wonder to the degree that we are fairly centralist, And we've only just got to this stage of having parliamentary representation. I mean, the Michaels of the world have been working on this for decades and decades. And we have, those of us that have been elected, have literally caught the wave. Where all the hard work has been done through the mass movements that they've been involved in. And so I think they're not mutually exclusive, but we need a modern politics that encourages participation, not only in civil society, but also in our own party. Because the one thing I know for sure is that whilst we've got our 6 points of cannabis that we all agree on, and we've got our 5 values, which, to be blunt, look, you'd have to be a real arsehole to agree with the 5 values. We know that we stand from one nation to the socialists. We know that, for example, in the last federal election, 40% of our members in the northern suburbs of Melbourne put Labor last. So for us, we're in very rock solid ground when we talk about cannabis. But as soon as we stray from that, and as crossbenchers, you can't but stray, because if you can't limit yourself just to cannabis in the Parliament, we automatically alienate a percentage of our membership. So I think there's a process to be thought through and worked through as to how we build democracy in our party, we build participation, we build activists, we have people out there campaigning. So can I say in terms of activists, hello Renee Thompson, who is our candidate running in the Nepean by-election today. A perfect example of someone.
People are voting for her today. It's her election today.
All right, I'll leave it there.
Is that election today?
Right.
Okay, I've got a fairly radical point of view, and that is that we shoot ourselves in the foot if we stay a single issue party. Now, the thing about this is that about 80% of the population agrees with the general tenets of at least decriminalisation, 50% with legalisation. But they've also got cost of living, the housing crisis, they've got concerns about how the police are being managed, the education system. So I've got a challenge for you just now. Name me one area of life that has a political answer, and I'll give you a cannabis reference to it. One area. Education, perhaps?
That has a one answer.
Well, we're looking at the wide range of political responses to our lives in society. Now, you can look at I'll have to rephrase that. Let's take education for a start. What does education have to do with cannabis?
Funds.
They've been lied to. We're going to re-educate them.
Learning how to actually separate truth from fiction. What about if we look at education system we've got? What are children learning in school? Are they learning science, or are they learning what people purport to be science? What about the values of cannabis as a plant for microclimate change? What about water protection? What about looking at how we would restructure the environment as a community with villages around a village green where the children can be raised and we can be growing hemp in the back for biofuel? Are we teaching our children this? We're not. What about, let's take, for example, railways for iron ore in the Pilbara? What has that got to do with cannabis? Well, what about if we take the water from BHP and irrigate the land so that indigenous people there can grow their own industrial hemp and cannabis and help build their own houses and create their own economy and use that to get themselves off the ground? We have got, and I'll challenge you to find any area of politics where cannabis could not be involved. We have got the ADF building bomb-proof covers for their motors with cannabis hemp, with hemp and carbon fibre. Bomb and bullet-proof. We could be sending this into space. We could be turning our AUKUS into a grove for Australia, for Australians, building ships from hemp. We could be doing that, but we're not. Because why? Because we're thinking downstream, we're thinking old, we're thinking status quo. And what we need is to revitalise all of our politics, because the way we're going into politics now is into destruction. We're seeing the status quo system creating more and more demands for compliance. We're becoming slaves to a system which is profiting a very few, and the rest of us are going down the tubes. We are suffering because we're part of a system which is actually designed to exploit us, enslave us, and kill us. That's what we need. And so what we need is to get the strength of ourselves and tell our friends who aren't yet there that we need a complete renewal of society, and cannabis will lead the way because we think differently. We think for the people, we think for all of society, not just the few that will benefit from what we're standing for.
Yeah, we
I love it.
think outside the box.
So Brian, if I can come back to that, so you're not thinking we make new policies as much as educate people how cannabis can be involved in every aspect of life.
Yes.
Look, you've got a couple of hours spare. You can read my Substack there. The thing is, it's actually a different way of thinking,
Yeah.
and it's not just about the policy. It's about how we think about it. The facts may be there, but how we relate to them are very different, and so we need to actually educate ourselves and educate the public. Because at the moment, all the public cares about is who's won the footy and what's on television last night.
Can I also add one sentence? Cannabis is known for stopping the brainwashing, the mind control of the education system, of the science that isn't real science, etc.
So suppress it.
Yes.
Jeremy, Jez, I'm interested in something you said before about, did you say it means instructed the police, it's got to appear tough on drugs. That's an attitude change. We need to change that attitude.
Yeah, it's just a set piece. The police are so strong in New South Wales, but that's why there's all this interest in who the commissioner is, because the police can bring down government. They really can, because they can just leak stories to the press, like the Daily Telegraph, about this crime, that crime, and that feeds a news cycle. Then there's a law and order election, and they're going to be tough on crime. And what's the crime? It's drugs. And so that's how the police love it. So if there's any suggestion about changing the laws, well, the police, as you say, it's their business model.
Yeah.
You know, the drug war they are the soldiers in the drug war. That's more money flowing into them. And in New South Wales in particular, they are a gigantic organisation. They're the biggest per capita police force in the world. New South Wales. We've got more cops here, they're more powerful, and if a politician crosses them, they end up being torn down. So a big thing for me, I think, is, and there's valid points here, is democracy. How do we democratise the party? But justice. It's just injustice is what we are fighting against. It's an absolutely unjust that you have a situation that people can go to jail, can have their lives upended because they use and share a plant that's a medicine. That's why we're all here, because it's just because of the injustice. The law is the crime. And that's a paradigm that we can use to look at a lot of different parts of our society. Whether or not it's how we allocate tax, how we raise tax, it's how we do a whole range of things, where we allocate our resources in terms of government spending and the like. So that's a lens that cannabis gives us. It's actually of rationality, of reason, and honesty and truth. We're not bullshit artists. We're like, hold on, people who are cannabis users, they think of it, they mull things over, they think about it this way, they think about it that way, they go, oh, was I wrong? Am I right? Who knows? I'll think about it again tomorrow. We don't rush into things. We mull it over, and in the end we come up with a pretty good answer. If we wrote it down, we'd remember. But, and that's what we're going to do, we're recording them. So we're recording them, we're professionalising. But justice is, I think, a key theme, a lens we can look at things through, and people really want that. People are sick to fucking death of the old parties. They say one thing, all the votes are lifting off the Labor and Liberal Party. For the first time in Australian history, basically politically, for 110 years, more people are voting for parties and people other than Labor and Liberal. 50% now. 30 years ago, it was 85% of people voted for Labor and Liberal. Now, those votes are up for grab, and they want authentic, honest people who can float ideas, and so it's a great conversation to be having, how we make that decision together, and what's the lens we look at it through.
I always thought all our candidates, they can't be a candidate unless they smoke weed. We have the total evidence. He loves the weed. So, Rach, you wanted to say something, right? I found it on me. Fact on
Rachel,
assemblies. Rachel, go.
on assemblies or... I might just actually back up what Jeremy's saying.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, okay.
Do that.
Come back.
Just backing up what Jeremy is saying, to add to that, I think that we are also, as crossbenchers, as legalised cannabis MPs, we're not afraid to have the conversations that most MPs are. You know, they'll talk to you about it behind the scenes, but they are not willing to be public and to talk about things that no one else is comfortable talking about in Parliament. And that's just not cannabis related, that's a lot of social justice issues. It's, as Jeremy mentioned earlier, vicarious liability. Vicarious liability legislation wouldn't have happened in Victoria if we didn't lead the charge with that and put up a private member's bill and force the government to act. They had to then respond to that, and they had to do it in a way that was at least taking into consideration victim survivors' experiences, because we were standing with them and elevating their voices. And that's what we do when we're in Parliament.
And discrimination is a big word.
Shout out to the Brownie Netters, love your work.
And discrimination's a big word. Comes out of your office a lot. And not to, like, that's what the driving is. But workplace discrimination everywhere. The stigma thing's huge. Fiona.
And I think this goes back to this idea of citizens' assemblies. And let's remember, if you look at when medicinal cannabis was first legalised in the United States, it was through a citizens' referendum. But it was the citizens speaking forward. And I think this is what legalised cannabis does. It's about your rights. That's your right to choose whether you smoke a joint at the end of the day or have a beer. And citizens' assemblies just build on that notion that we are a rights organisation. We're a party that's about your rights to choose the medicine that you want, and your right to drive when you're not impaired when you're on that medicine. But I think we are, and it's about justice. And as Brian was saying, you know, you can tie cannabis back into education, you can tie it into health, you can certainly tie it into injustices amongst our Indigenous Australians.
Cost of living.
And I think something like citizens' assemblies, which Miles and the policy team have done a great deal of work on, really echoes that. I mean, people don't trust governments anymore. You know, our trust in government is at an all-time low. It has never, ever been lower. So starting to talk about ways to trust government, when 80% of us think that cannabis shouldn't be a crime, yet the government doesn't do something about that, then this is about restoring that trust. And I think citizens' assemblies is along those same lines of restoring trust and also about standing up for people's rights. Vicarious liability absolutely did the same. I think what David and Rachel have been doing in their own electorates around issues, whether it's waste to energy, where they're, you know, building more waste to energy places in Victoria than they have in the rest of Australia put together. It's about representing people and their rights, and I think this is something that this party does well.
And being inclusive. I think being inclusive. Being inclusive is critical. People don't feel heard, don't feel included, Andrew thinks.
Yeah, I'll just go on. Henry, you want to, sorry, Andrew didn't.
Go on, Mark.
I was just going to say, based on what Fiona was saying, I 100% agree. What I like about the Citizens' Assembly or even like participatory democracy like Switzerland is the simple fact that it's a grassroots campaign. It's the people making their message heard. It's not the Parliament ignoring that. They can't ignore that message. We saw that with the gay marriage. They couldn't ignore the plebiscite, you know? So that's great. And also it's a grassroots, but it's also, we were a party that stood against the prohibition of cannabis and the stigma and the prohibition of cannabis users and the criminalisation of them, which was a failure in 100 years. So we can also be the party about doing things differently, about dealing with drugs differently, about dealing with nature differently, and we can do democracy differently.
Yeah.
I'm also on the policy committee with Miles and Michael and a couple of people. The Citizens' Assembly thing, it is really good about the people power side of it, and that the people have their finger in the democracy and a bit of influence. But it's actually a really positive thing for politicians, and that's what we need to sell them, is that when they come up with a sticky issue, they've got this mini referendum that then they can pull recommendations out of and recirculate back into the electorate and say, this is what the people want. So it sort of takes a bit of heat off the politicians from the Murdoch press and people like this, because it's not a politician that's exposed themselves. All it is a politician that's bouncing back what their citizens' assembly have recommended, and it actually gives them a bit of an out on some really difficult topics, like drug law reform. So I think that's one of the biggest benefits. We need to sell that to the politicians, so they want it.
Hey, small diversion. A couple of times we got New South Wales and Victorian elections coming up, and we need candidates. It can be fun.
Oh,
It can be fun. But I've got to tell you, you can't. There's a few complications. You can't have a big criminal record, and you can't be a citizen of another country. So when the Farrer by-election came along recently, Susan Lay got upset and she's quit. So, you know, we emailed all our members. I think there was 42 members by chance in that Farrer by-election. And this great woman put her hand up and said, I'm interested. Her name is Amy Pearson. You here, Amy? Here she is. You are here. Yeah. How good is she? So Amy's a pharmacist in Albury, am I right, John?
Yes.
And her husband, she would be using weed, except she's worried about losing her licence.
Yes.
That's very important, I think.
Yes.
Anyway, you tell us more. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yes, so I am a pharmacist. I've been a pharmacist for about 15 years. My husband, Matt, is out there. He uses cannabis for his multiple sclerosis. He gets a lot of nerve pain. And I'm really barracking for the change in the RDT laws. You know, he's doing everything his doctor has done, you know, told him to do. He's done it all legally. He's using it legally, and he can lose his license for what? Doing what he was told to do. And there's no other prescription medication that it happens to. So why?
Yes.
Yeah. So
And they just let dope smokers back into the US Army. Don't forget that.
Oh, okay. I didn't do that. Okay.
How are you finding the
They're 20 years ahead of us.
So I'm really nervous. I know, right. Yeah, the campaign's been good. I'm a mother of twins as well. I work full time, so you know, finding the time to put everything into it is difficult, but we're getting there. The election's next week. We'll see how we go. But it's funny how you're saying the citizenship thing. I didn't know I was a citizen of New Zealand, and we went through it all. And they're like, oh, you know, you are actually a citizen of New Zealand. I'm like, I don't know.
Is that because your mum?
My mum was a New Zealand citizen when I was born. Thanks, Mum. So I had to.
Born in Australia.
I was born in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was born in Wollongong. Grew up in Dapto, if anyone knows where that is. Yeah, Dapto. Yeah. So I had to go through that whole Section 44 thing, and then it was like 2 days late, and then my name's in Sky News, and I'm like, I'm just this little person from Albury, and I had to go on like a mental health walk and have a cry because I'm like, oh my god, they see me. But no, It was a non-event anyway, but it was it's interesting.
She's no longer a New Zealand citizen.
I am no
Good on you, Amy.
I have the paperwork.
Anyway, it'll be all over the news next weekend, that Farrer by-election. It's awesome that you're there representing us. And every ballot paper there is going to read Legalise Cannabis, Amy Pearson. That gets it out there.
Yeah, it does.
Good on you, Amy. Yeah. Because I've got the chair, I've got 2 quick questions. Because you go to these elections now, and you'll find out next weekend, or people will find out, you know, vote legalise cannabis, people will say it's already legal, mate. Should we change our name? What do you think? Quick. I would just drop the word legalise. What do you think? Quick say from everyone.
I find people have been saying, but it is confusing. It is for the average person that doesn't understand the nuances of it.
What about just human rights with the cannabis leaf?
We have a very big following because of the cannabis word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It is the cannabis.
that in itself gives us a ceiling of participation.
Quick words. Quick.
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
I think we get shorthanded to the Cannabis Party anyway. I think the media quite often will say, "Oh, you're the Cannabis Party," so we're the Cannabis Party, we're the Pot Party.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we are, our name is our branding is so strong. We would risk diluting that message, and I think it opens that conversation up. If people say it's already legalised, well, no, only if you can access it and pay for a doctor to get a medicinal cannabis script.
It's not legal
for
for a patient if you can't drive.
That's right. If you can't drive, if you don't have your rights, then no, it's not legal. So it does open up that conversation.
Well, I got asked many times, what are you going to call yourselves when you're successful? And I said, well, the beauty of our name is that all we have to do is put a D on the end of the first word, and that's our claim to fame. But yeah, look, I mean, we are the leaf. When we get people to vote, it's like, and it's like a half-acre ballot paper. It's like, look for the leaf. Look for the leaf. So we are the Cannabis Party, and I think that would be a much simpler and easier way to say it.
Again, I'm a bit more radical here. I think I'd agree with just Cannabis Party. The reason for this is that you can't expect people to think politics when they come to the booth. They want to get it over as quickly as possible. Do I draw a penis in this or do I take it in a box? And so the easier we can make it, the better. So cannabis by all means. But I would be counselling, we should be putting out, not cannabis to be legalised, we should be putting out cannabis as a symbol for every which way the government has shattered us since time ever began.
Yeah, I like that.
I hate to be a stiff nerd, but I think the herb needs the verb. And I like legalise cannabis because it's an action word. It's like we're doing something here where there's a singular purpose, and even though medicinal is legal, people, especially working class people, regional people, the First Nations communities, they can't avail themselves of the doctor, the prescription model, and all those people who just want to grow their own weed and sell it at a farmer's market. That's so at this stage. Look, we're establishing our brand. It's resonating with people. I like the verb, and I love the herb. But if we get to the stage where we've done RDT and we start to dip down in the vote, maybe we do, KFC sort of change up in the name. But the leaf's the thing, and I think over time we'll get known for other things too. Freedom, justice, hope, optimism, all of those types of things. And so at this stage, let's keep it just the way it is.
What's everyone think in the audience? Should we keep who's for keeping the name the same?
At the moment,
Who's for changing it to Cannabis Party?
Cannabis Justice Party.
Oh. I've got one other quick subject, which I think is a bit of a no-brainer, and it is in our policies. And I'm New South Wales. Pretty much every morning there's another shooting, murder, gangs in Sydney. We sent Jeremy to stop that. He hasn't been able to, because really that's not weed. And I reckon we should be quite loudly end the whole drug war. Prohibition is the problem.
Oh, look, absolutely. Like, Sydney's out of control, and like Melbourne too. They're burning places down for like illicit alcohol, chop, tobacco, vapes, the whole thing. Prohibition is the dumbest policy response humans have ever come up with. It just does not work, and everyone knows it. And everyone knows that we need to convince politicians that there's an electoral benefit for having the courage to say we need to take the power, the money, the Glocks out of the hands of the morons who are shooting each other in public, executing each other, burning each other's houses down because the community's sick of it. It's a waste of resources, it's a waste of time. And that's why, in my talk earlier on, which I know all the members here missed, which was, it's the big social policy, the big social reform that is yet to be done here in Australia is drug law reform, and everyone knows it. It's unfinished business.
What else? Other priorities? Anything from the audience? Priorities, quick.
The election and starting campaigning ASAP.
Who's? Did someone stop? I got another quick question for you. I got another quick subject then. It's a bit of an issue that us hippies, look at me in particular, are helpful to keeping prohibition happening. Do we need a straighter image? Seriously.
No, we need a socialist image. We need more socialist image.
Yeah.
More socialist image.
I mean, it's funny you say that, Michael, because Ethan Nadelman said exactly the same thing just this minute. And Ethan really was, he was one of the major forces behind the legalisation of cannabis in America. You know, he got the likes of billionaires like George Soros to back him. And he didn't get it because he looked like a hippie.
That's right. It is an absolute real issue. I'm acutely aware of it in Nimbin. And and I'm not getting a haircut. So there's an issue. And I think, we copped a lot of stick because medical happened and we went for medical. It should be everything. But medical was the thin edge of the wedge. And, as Ethan is saying.
That's right. But don't forget, had it not been for the hippies, we would not be here having conversations. Like, the last 40, 50 years of advocacy has come from the amazingly articulate people like yourself.
Yeah, but it's changed. We're past that now. Times have moved on.
Jared?
Jeremy did cut his hair. I appreciate it.
Just back to the party, man. We've had a bit of a running joke because particularly we're running in the Nepean by-election where it's quite a wealthy area of Victoria. And we joked with, if we were the Legalise cocaine party, we probably get quite a high vote down there. So back to drug law reform more broadly, I think it's interesting which parts of community you really pique the interest of when you talk about drugs.
I think it's a good idea. Some of my favourite people are LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition.
Yeah.
And that big American movement. I think Australia's got 3 members in the police. Yeah. Anyway, they are all about regulating all drugs.
Yeah. Look, we're professional politicians. We've got to go in there, put a suit on. They actually require you to do that. And all of those types of things, and we work hard, do a good job, and the politicians see that, but we're always going to be true to our roots. This movement came out of the counterculture revolution in the 60s. We can't undo that, and we don't want to undo that. So, it's just like the Labor Party has its union roots, and the Liberal Party has its roots in Satanism or whatever it is, whatever it is, the dark arts, being the tools of darkness, whatever they are. We are, we're for the herb, the rainbow, the hope, optimism, all the rest of it. We'll always be that, and then there's a multiplicity in there too.
Yeah.
My gummy's kicking in. I'm sorry.
I'll just add quickly on that. There's a good point about making the cannabis reform palatable to middle Australia through how you dressing and wearing suits and connecting on that level. But I also think that the party, as you've said, we connect to this history, so we should do this party with joy, and with fun. Yeah. And I think that we should never lose that, and I think that the people out there are crying out for authentic politicians. And if you look at our panel, these are such authentic people,
Yeah.
They're real people with real story, and I think that the people see that, and that's going to help us grow,
One more authentic wannabe politician, Don Fuggle. Don's been a candidate for us.
It's Don
Tell us, Don. Speak up.
Quick question. In your article about jobs and losing jobs and drug testing, should be politicians and police.
Why?
Police are random tested. Yeah, police do get random tested.
On the road?
Yes, they do.
No, within their workplace. So it's part of their workplace protocols. They're random tested. So we had one police officer who nearly. We actually had one police officer who nearly lost his job because he was on medicinal cannabis, but he fought it and he won, and the police in the Victorian Police were directed to get proper policies on medicinal cannabis, and this person was on a CBD, for 99% CBD, but the testing he was doing picked up that tiny 1% THC, and he actually worked in the drug squad, and I'm pleased to say he still does. But yeah, they do get tested, and it's a problem.
I would also like to see our colleagues, our other MPs across all political persuasions breathalyse, because so many of them do drink the work. And I think we're all. I don't see any issue with having a glass of wine after work, but realistically, you shouldn't be getting drunk when you're there standing up for your communities.
So you're allowed to drink, but not over 0.05.
Can I make one other? We actually had a big debate last year about tightening up on working with children checks. And in Victoria, there's over 2 million people that are required to have a working with children check to be able to get their jobs. And the government basically just stripped away as a money-saving exercise a whole lot of the due process and natural rights associated with this. So one of the things we're thinking about doing is bringing in or moving that there should be working with children checks for politicians. Because at the moment, we're exempt from that requirement, and it's such utter hypocrisy. And I think one thing that we can do, and we do well, is point out the hypocrites. And people relate to that because everyone smells it.
I have one problem. I have a question about that. What about the ones that have never been caught or never been charged? I mean, don't get all the working checks in the world, but if they've never been caught or what their behaviours are, they're going to come up clean and they're going to stay that way under that protected umbrella of I've been checked out. So it kind of concerns me, that we don't know who these predators are and they could be seen.
Yeah, look, I think it's very clear that the regulatory system's been pretty well screwed, and certainly childcare in Victoria proved that. That there are major holes. I don't know what the answer is to that, other than it's sure as shit not to reduce the number of people that are actually coordinating it, organising it, because that's where they're going. And that's something we called out, and I have to say we were very lonely, as we have been on so many votes over the last 3.5 years, where we're just trying to do the right thing. But people respect you for that, prefer to lose doing the right thing than win by lying.
All right. Have you got a report from the third party that you like your collective vote goes to, like Labor or Liberal? What party do your preferences go to?
We don't have that, so you choose your own preferences.
Great question. Who are we preferencing nowadays?
Open ticket. And no, the PM's open ticket.
Amy is an open ticket, aren't you? Amy's an open ticket. Vote won't legalise cannabis, then whoever you like. And you can make it a protest vote then, and then, it's two hits for one, I always think. Have a say and vote for who you think. We don't win, get the other guy in, We are the one you want.
Excellent marginal seats and campaign against Labor.
Go Macca.
Cause them to suffer a defeat because of our preferences.
Yeah, we certainly get a lot of people upset by our preferences. Anyway, one of the important things that's come up tonight is both New South Wales and Victoria have imminent elections, and we need candidates. And we need people on the ground handing out, helping. Even if you, I mean, I do get the stigma associated with it, so it's not so easy for us to get people out there. People lose their jobs or lose their neighbours or whatever, but you can have a good time on the booth or being a candidate. And as you can see, Amy's running next week, but she can still come here. And Renee can even run today and still be here. You don't have to get too worried.
Do we get to wear a shirt?
You get to wear a shirt. You're a candidate, you get a shirt.
Everyone gets a shirt.
On that stigma and sticking your head up, I work in a safety critical industry. I get drug tested all the time. I've run as a candidate twice. We have stickers all over our car. We've never been ODT'd. We've never been harassed by the police. I've never been harassed at work. We're not going to move ahead unless we decide that there is no stigma attached to this. If we are the ones that keep saying we can't be seen in public because we support cannabis legalisation, then we're not going anywhere. As a movement, we need to stand up and go, I'm for this.
80% support legalisation, 3 times as many pot smokers support legalisation. There can't be stigma.
And like all prohibitions, this will pass. But it will pass because everyone stands up, put their hands up. And honestly, I've been followed so many times with all my legalised cannabis stickers on the back of the car by all levels of police. I've never ever been pulled over for an ODT.
Is it an expensive car?
That's a bit light. It's an old BMW, but it's like
That's why.
it's 15 years old.
It must be ex-holder with all those things.
You did have a lot of signs on your car too.
I had one legalised cannabis sign and the only sign is the law with ODT. That was only 2. Now I've got several more.
You know, any final thoughts?
The observation has been made. The observation has been made, Michael. If we don't finish up soon, we get a bit 420.
No, the combi convoy will start around. I saw Caroline head off, so it's not quite there yet. The combi convoy will come and then the big smoking at 420 in the street, occupied. But I really want to thank all you guys for coming. I love seeing you all together for a little collaborative. Thanks very much. Good luck, Amy.